Well, it's that time of the week again for Sterlo's wrap-up. 12 rounds gone as we head into the State of Origin period. So much to talk about. Peter Sterling's with me. Hello, Sterlo.
Hello, James. You mentioned 12 rounds, so another 12 to go in the home and away. We are at the halfway mark, and we've got the Panthers and the Dragons sitting on top of the competition ladder. Timely that they met on Saturday night, a game we'll get into shortly.
Absolutely. So much to discuss. Let's go back to Thursday night. We're there live and 3 on 9. The Broncos and the Eels. Parramatta still stuck in the bottom of the ladder on the back of that 18-10 defeat.
Yeah, much better second half from the Blue and Golds, but never really a game that Brisbane looked in doubt. Probably the scoreline maybe flatters Parramatta a little bit, but I think the great thing for the Brisbane Broncos of late has been the emergence of their young players, especially their back row. Pangai Jr., Sewer and Offa-Hengawi were outstanding. Asako has been tremendous this year on the wing. So that's been a real plus for them when you've got the likes of Matt Gillett and Josh Maguire still sitting on the sidelines. Parramatta showed plenty of effort in this game, but again, own worst enemies on many occasions. But it was a more promising second half.
Now pretty much looking towards 2019 on the back of that. The mass just gets uglier and uglier.
Well, we're not even going to go there, are we? But, I think they can cause a few problems for some teams in the second half. Unfortunate that really now they're going to be nuisance value more than anything else.
Yep. Look, the early kickoff on Friday night, the Raiders and the Seagulls had a feeling this was always going to be an entertaining match. Manly coming in form, the Raiders desperate to keep in touch with the 8. 21-22, 21-20 went right down to the wire this one, Pete.
It was all the Manly side early on, but this Canberra team, unlike in past performances, when it got close, they got their decisions right. And we'll have a look at Aidan Sezer in just a moment. This effort from Nick Cotric, absolutely outstanding for Jack White to score that try. And, if you'd have said before the game, well, one team's going to get beaten in a close game by one, you'd have said, oh, bad luck to the Canberra Raiders. But they got it right. Now, finally. I mentioned last week Aidan Sezer and Blake Austin just getting things wrong late in the game. Aidan Sezer here, 20 all with 1:44 to go, came up with the perfect play. Forced a restart, put a lot of pressure on Tom Trbojevic there. They get the football back from that. They kick the field goal. Now, he could have opted to gone for the field goal earlier from well out, possibly missed, 20-metre restart, 7 tackles, and all of a sudden Manly have the advantage. Congratulations to Aidan Sezer, came up with the right play at the right time, and that was instrumental in getting them the points.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the only one-point nail-biter on Friday night. The later game in Townsville, we were there live and 3 on 9 for the Storm and the Cowboys, a battle of a couple of old mates in Johnathan Thurston and Cameron Smith for the final time, and it was Smith's Storm, 7 points to 6, Pete.
It was a game that Billy Slater and Ryan Hoffman rested from Melbourne. And I've got to say, in their absence, the two Camerons, Cameron Smith and Cameron Munster, they just took control. Now, I know 7-6 says it was very, very close, as it was, but I always thought Melbourne were going to win this game. Smith was unbelievable. He just orchestrated everything to perfection. Again, a sign of what Queensland are going to miss in this Origin campaign that is almost upon us. Disappointment for North Queensland. We know that they've had a poor season, a rematch of the last year's grand finalists. We didn't think one of those would be sitting in 15th position, and North Queensland will not play finals football this year. 24 times now, Johnathan Thurston and Cameron Smith have played each other at the NRL level. It's now 15-9 in favour of Cameron Smith, so he finishes.
He wins.
Top. He does.
Matt Scott was a big talking point coming out of this match as well. Suspension, and many thought perhaps it would rule him out of the Queensland team. In the end, that didn't matter because he wasn't chosen.
Well, I wanted to show this because he was really good in this game, Matt Scott. But have a look at this collision with Asafa Solomon. But look at Jason Taumalolo. Put on his backside. When was the last time you saw Taumalolo come out of a collision like that and be the worst one? That's how big some of those collisions were, and they invariably involved Matt Scott.
And the other suspension out of that match too, Sam Cassiano for that late hit on Johnathan Thurston.
Yeah, deservedly so.
Worth the week, perhaps, maybe more?
Oh, longer. Well, Andrew Johns, he called for a 4-week as a compulsory, that could be argued, but I think 1 week was very lenient.
Okay, either way, the Storm to be without Big Sam and the Cowboys without Matt Scott, unless there's a successful judiciary visit by the pair of them. Let's head to Saturday, Gosford on the New South Wales Central Coast, the scene for the Roosters and the Titans. The Titans, Pete, they had the better of them at the break. In the end, 28 unanswered points in that second half, and the Roosters getting the job done.
I don't know what happened to the Titans in the second half. They led 14-6 at the break and played some really good football. Ash Taylor, as you can see, was tremendous. Maybe half-time was the worst thing that happened to them because they came out the first 15 minutes of that second half. They just got blown off the park and the game was gone. So the Roosters weren't great in the first half, probably got better the longer the game went. but so disappointed with the Titans because they offered so much in that first 40 minutes. Ash Taylor got sin binned. That didn't help their cause, obviously. But, yeah, really disappointing performance from the Titans after the break. Now, on the back of some criticism from Phil Gould in relation to Boyd Cordner's game not being advanced in recent seasons, never passing the football, just have a look at this beauty to put Latrell Mitchell in the gap and away. So sometimes a little prod can get a positive result, and that's what Boyd Cordner can do. There is more to his game, and that was an illustration of it. And I think Brad Fittler will be looking for more of the same when they take on Queensland on June 6th.
Absolutely. Nice to see from Boyd. The match after that in Auckland was the scene for the Warriors to host the Rabbitohs. Always going to be entertaining, but probably not as lopsided as we would have expected. 30 points to 10. South Sydney, third spot, and they are looking everything the finals team.
Well, especially when Ignatius Parsi scored the first try and got the Warriors off to the ideal start. But from that moment on, it was all South Sydney, and it's on the back of their forward pack who go forward. Not just the Burgess brothers, but John Sutton is almost in career best form. Angus Crichton has been tremendous, and Damien Cook has just been unstoppable. And it's a classy backline. They've got the balance right between structured play and ad-lib football.
Yep.
Now, Greg Inglis is back at fullback in the absence of Alex Johnson out injured. I think he's enjoying that role for a few weeks. He'll come back into the centres when Johnson is available. But very disappointing now, the Warriors in relation to some big scorelines put against them in recent times. 50 to 10, 32-0, another one here. I'm just wondering whether we got a little bit carried away with them early in the season. But must point out, no Sean Johnson, and Mason Lenor wasn't available as well. The Peta-Hiku pairing with Blake Green in the halves didn't quite work.
No, always going to be hard to fill those big shoes. Sean Johnson's. Look, Panthers was the scene for Saturday night, 1v2, the Dragons. Could they be stopped by the Penrith Panthers? Yes, was the simple answer in the end. 28 points to 2. Did you see that coming?
I thought Penrith would win, but I didn't think they'd keep the Dragons trialless and win by such a margin. I thought it was one of the best performances, if not the best I've seen from any team this year. The great thing about this Penrith team is that they are always at the opposition, whether they've got the football or not. Defensively, great line speed, got up and put a lot of pressure on Hunt and Widdop. And when they got the football, they were keeping it alive and having... There's no settlers. They're always at you. And I want to praise the referees, Jared Sutton and Chris Sutton. I went into this game thinking that it could be spoiled as a spectacle by the officiating. It wasn't. They allowed them to play. They allowed them to get in at each other. And we got a great game out of it. Not so great for the Dragons, but the Penrith side, I think that they confirmed that they are true contenders this year and they deserve to be on top of the ladder at the halfway mark, considering the fact they've got some high-profile players sitting on the injured list as well.
They certainly do. One being Dylan Edwards, and that man, Dallin-Watene-Zelezniak, hasn't he filled in style at the back?
Well, their forwards were great. But I love a fullback who attacks the football and eats up every metre that he can. And this is evidence of it here. Look at this. Getting in there, grabbing the football, straight up on his feet. Every carry was like this from Dallin-Watene-Zelezniak. Maybe not as spectacular as that one, but he was tremendous in a really, really good performance from the home side.
All right, let's head to Sunday, Pete. The Knights and the Sharks. This was in Newcastle at Beanie for Brain Cancer Stadium. Well done to McDonald Jones for handing over their naming rights on such a big day for Novocastrians. Unfortunately, it was a 48 points to 10 scoreline for the home side. On the receiving end from a Cronulla team that just keeps on keeping on, 6 on the trot now.
Yeah, and the poorest performance we've seen from Newcastle this year, and Nathan Brown particularly disappointed with this. They scored a try to get back into it at 16-6 and then had an opportunity to go into the half-time break with a little bit of momentum on the back of those points, but they conceded a really poor try just before half-time, and 22-6, very different. It was Cronulla who actually went in feeling much better about themselves than the home side were. Matt Moylan, outstanding, something like 6 try assists. He's settled into that 5/8 role now. It's taken a while for the Cronulla side to get Dugan at fullback and Moylan there, to get Wade Graham, Luke Lewis and Paul Gallen all out on the field at the same time. Andrew Fafita didn't play in this game. He had a sore knee, but he'll come back into it. 6 straight wins, and they've done that without their best side on the paddock. Really good sign for Cronulla. Newcastle back to the drawing board once again. this is going to happen a couple more times during the second half of the season.
The round wrapped up at ANZ Stadium in Sydney. The Tigers and the Bulldogs for the first time in 2018. 4-point difference in the end, but so many great matchups across the park. Aaron Woods against his old team, so too Josh Reynolds, the two Marshall brothers. What did you make of this match for both sides, though?
Oh, I thought it was really good for the West Tigers. They'd lost 4 of their last 5. It was important that they didn't undo all of that good work early by starting to string together a really poor middle part of the season. They were behind in this game, or the Bulldogs scored a couple of nice tries, but the West Tigers, once they started to control the football, they looked so much more dangerous than their opposition, and eventually they got in front and came up with an important win. Josh Reynolds' return was an excellent one. I think his second carry was taking a quick tap and picking up 20 metres, and that's the energy that he brings into that side. I think we'll see him out of dummy half for the rest of the season. A little moment here right at the end of the game probably summed up the West Tigers for me. It's Mahe Whenua showing desperation to get on that pass. That's fantastic. But they lead by 4 with a minute and a half to go, and he's looking to pass. No, don't pass. Just wrap it up.
Yep.
Get control. But that's kind of their mentality. You know, they're desperate. They do those little things, the 1%ers that we call them, really well. But then their first is, OK, well, what can I do with the ball? Just got to temper it a little bit. And when they get that right, they're a really tough football side to beat.
What was it his coach Ivan Cleary said last week? Mahe Whenua is that player that both coaches on either side hold their breath when he's got the ball in his hands.
Exactly. And it was nice to see him bounce back. You know, he made a mistake. He was late for training after a man-of-the-match performance at Leichhardt. So he's been a plus for them, and he'll have learnt from that. And good desperation. That's what you want to see with a minute and a half to go from your football team. A ball on the ground, you want your jersey on it.
So very true. Peter Sterling, 12 rounds gone. We head in the Origin period now. Big testing time ahead for those teams like the Panthers and the Dragons over the next month or so as well.
Yeah, those ones with big representation, but they've got strong rosters, and the coaches have been smart. They've blooded a few players. Paul McGregor has brought some players in off the bench just to step in when this was going to come around, and it's now upon us.
Big few weeks ahead. Bring it on. Thank you, Sterlo.
Thanks, Joe.
That is Sterlo's wrap after 12 rounds of the competition. Make sure you do join us. We are live and free this Thursday night at Lottoland.